In the vast, intricate history of China, few periods shine as brightly as the Tang dynasty. And at the heart of that brilliance stands Emperor Xuanzong, a ruler whose reign began with promise and achievement, but ended in turmoil and regret. But to understand Xuanzong's rise, we must first begin with a woman who changed the very course of Chinese history, Empress Wu Zetian. Born in 624 during the Tang dynasty, Wu Zetian began her life at court as a concubine of Emperor Taizong. Following his death, she navigated a treacherous path back into power, eventually becoming the empress consort of his successor, Emperor Gaozong. Yet Wu Zetian's ambitions stretched far beyond the traditional role of an empress. After Gaozong's health declined, Wu Zetian effectively ruled in his place, and upon his death she seized power outright. In 690, she officially declared the founding of her own Zhou dynasty, temporarily interrupting the Tang line. Her reign brought notable reforms: the expansion of the civil service examination system, improvements in agriculture, and efforts to elevate talented officials, regardless of their family background. As Wu Zetian aged, her grip on power began to loosen. Court intrigues intensified, factions emerged, and trust eroded among her closest advisors. In 705, a palace coup forced her to abdicate in favor of her son, restoring the Tang dynasty to the throne. Wu Zetian died shortly afterward, leaving behind a complicated legacy. The restoration of Tang, however, did not immediately bring peace. The court remained divided, plagued by scheming nobles and ambitious empresses. Emperor Zhongzong, Wu Zetian's son, was weak-willed and heavily influenced by his wife Empress Wei, who sought to emulate Wu Zetian's path to supreme power. After Zhongzong's sudden death, widely suspected to have been orchestrated by Empress Wei herself, the empire once again stood on the edge of chaos. In this atmosphere of uncertainty, a new figure emerged from within the imperial family, a young and calculating prince named Li Longji. Determined to prevent a repeat of Wu Zetian's rise through Empress Wei, Li Longji acted swiftly. In 710, he orchestrated a coup that removed Empress Wei and her faction, reinstating his father Emperor Ruizong as the nominal ruler. Yet in reality, it was Li Longji who now held the true power. 2 years later, in 712, Li Longji officially ascended the throne as Emperor Xuanzong of Tang. His reign would become one of the most remarkable in Chinese history. This is the story of Xuanzong, the brilliant emperor who led the Tang dynasty into its golden age, and whose later years would cast a long shadow over his legacy. Li Longji was born in 685, during one of the most turbulent periods in the Tang dynasty's history. His birth came at a time when Wu Zetian still held immense influence at court. He was the third son of Li Dan, who would later reign as Emperor Ruizong. His mother, Consort Dou, was of noble lineage, but like many women at the imperial court, her position was precarious. From a young age, Li Longji was exposed to the realities of survival within the royal household. His family lived under the shadow of Wu Zetian's authority, and court politics shaped every aspect of daily life. As he grew older, Li Longji distinguished himself through his sharp mind and capable character. Unlike many princes who were content to live quietly in the background, he paid close attention to the workings of court politics. The early 8th century was a dangerous time for a prince with ambition. Wu Zetian had officially abdicated in 705, but the court remained unstable. Emperor Zhongzong's death in 710 threw the dynasty into further disarray, as Empress Wei sought to become the next woman to dominate the throne. Li Longji, now a young man, saw the looming threat. With careful planning and a few trusted allies, he struck. In a swift and decisive move, he staged a palace coup, eliminating Empress Wei and dismantling her faction. For his actions, he was hailed as the savior of the Tang dynasty. And in the political reshuffling that followed, he rose rapidly in influence. In 712, Li Longji formally ascended the throne as Emperor Xuanzong. At just 27 years old, he took on the immense responsibility of restoring stability and glory to an empire still shaken by decades of intrigue and misrule. When Xuanzong officially took the throne, the Tang dynasty had survived the disruptions of Wu Zetian and the instability that followed. but the foundations of governance were still shaky. Corruption lingered in the bureaucracy, provincial administration was uneven, and the court remained haunted by the memory of palace coups and unchecked power. Xuanzong understood that the legitimacy of his rule depended on more than just political success. It required restoring faith in the empire itself. He began by taking direct control of government affairs, attending court daily, consulting widely with ministers, and personally reviewing reports from across the empire. Xuanzong's early reign marked the high point of the Tang dynasty. He launched sweeping reforms to strengthen the empire's foundations. Wasteful court spending was curtailed, corrupt officials were dismissed, and meritocracy was reinforced within the bureaucracy. Under Xuanzong's leadership, the empire's economy flourished. Trade along the Silk Road expanded, bringing wealth and foreign goods to China's cities. The emperor was a patron of culture and innovation. Under his reign, Tang China reached its golden age of poetry, with figures like Li Bai and Du Fu rising to prominence. The capital Chang'an became one of the largest and most cosmopolitan cities in the world, attracting merchants, scholars, and envoys from across Asia and beyond. Xuanzong also reformed the military, establishing frontier garrisons and appointing capable generals to defend the empire's vast borders. Xuanzong also reformed the military, establishing frontier garrisons and appointing capable generals to defend the empire's vast borders. In his prime, Xuanzong was known for his diligence and attention to state affairs. He would rise early each day to hold court sessions and listen to the reports of his ministers. His leadership brought stability and prosperity that few emperors in Chinese history could rival. However, as Xuanzong aged, the careful diligence that had defined his early reign began to wane. Gradually, he withdrew from the day-to-day responsibilities of governance, preferring to indulge in the pleasures of court life. This retreat coincided with his growing affection for Yang Guifei, one of the famed four beauties of ancient China. Yang Guifei, originally the wife of one of Xuanzong's sons, captivated the aging emperor. So enamored was Xuanzong that he arranged for her to become his consort. Her cousin Yang Guozhong, in particular, rose rapidly through the ranks, amassing authority far beyond his capabilities. This favoritism sowed resentment among court officials and the military. Meanwhile, on the frontiers, An Lushan, once a trusted general, harbored ambitions of his own. In 755, An Lushan rebelled, leading one of the most devastating uprisings in Chinese history, the An Lushan Rebellion. The rebellion exposed the fragility that had crept into Xuanzong's empire during his later years. Forced to flee the capital, Xuanzong's once mighty dynasty teetered on the brink of collapse. During the flight, the emperor's own guards, blaming Yang Guifei and her family for the disaster, demanded her execution. Xuanzong, with no other choice, consented. The death of Yang Guifei marked a profound personal and political loss for the emperor. Broken in spirit, Xuanzong abdicated in 756 in favor of his son, who became Emperor Suzong. The rebellion would take years to suppress, and even when it ended, the Tang dynasty would never fully regain its former glory. Xuanzong lived out his final years in relative obscurity, reflecting on a reign that had begun with extraordinary promise and ended in tragedy. He died in 762 at the age of 77.